ever pour your heart into something like an email or a presentation or even just a quick text, and then, you hear nothing back. It's like all you get are crickets. It's like you're speaking a completely different language.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, get ready, because in today's deep dive, we're tackling how to really connect with your audience. And we're using this awesome article by senior technical writer Curt Robbins as our guide.
It's a good one.
It's called Pro Tip: Obsess Over Your Audience.
Hmm.
And it sounds a little intense, I know, but I promise you this is relevant to anyone who's ever felt like their message just wasn't landing.
Oh, for sure.
So Robbins kicks off his article with this anecdote that I think a lot of us can relate to. He's super fired up about this cool new astrophysics discovery.
Okay.
And his first instinct is to share it with everyone on LinkedIn, his entire network.
Which is such a natural impulse, right? Like,
Yeah.
we get excited about something.
Yeah.
And we want to share that excitement, tell the world.
Exactly. But just before he hits share, he kind of stops himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he realizes most of his connections on LinkedIn are, IT professionals, tech writers,
Right.
and they probably don't care about the latest black hole breakthrough.
Probably not, no.
And that's where Robbins' genius kicks in, right? He recognizes that connecting with your audience, it's about way more than just, having something interesting to say. You've got to know who you're talking to.
It's so true. It's like, it's about understanding what makes them tick, what keeps them up at night,
Yeah.
what they actually want to hear about, not just what you want to tell them,
It's true.
you know?
Yeah, and in a world that is absolutely drowning in content, that kind of audience awareness,
Well, yeah.
it's more valuable than ever.
Totally.
It's like the difference between shouting into a void, right?
Yeah.
And actually having a conversation with someone.
100%.
And that's where Robbins' advice gets really interesting, right? He doesn't just say, hey, know your audience. Like, he actually gives you a way to really, truly understand them.
Yeah, he gives you a framework.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that, because he jumps right into this whole thing about defining your audience.
He does. And you know what? That's where people mess up, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they think, oh, my audience is anyone who likes to, whatever their topic is, right?
Right.
But Robbins is like, no. Go deeper than that. Like, forget those basic demographics,
He really wants us to get into their heads.
Yes. He even talks about creating these detailed profiles of your ideal audience members, and I love this. Like, give them names, jobs, families. What are they worried about? What do they want? The whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I have to admit, when I first read about giving your ideal customer a name, like he uses the example Jane Doe, I was like, oh, okay, Curt, this is a little out there.
It sounds a little weird, yeah.
It does. But then when you actually think about it, it's like you're not just speaking to some, vague idea of a customer. You're talking to Jane. What's her day look like? What keeps her up at night?
Yeah. What does Jane actually want to hear from you?
Yeah.
It's so powerful when you think about it that way.
It totally changes your perspective.
It does. You're not starting from scratch anymore.
You have a starting point. It's like you have your muse, right? And it makes it so much easier to actually craft your message.
It really does, because you're like, oh, if I'm talking to Jane,
Right.
this is what I would say.
Exactly. It's like having a real conversation instead of just, shouting into the void.
Yeah.
And speaking of real conversations, Robbins makes this other really good point about how you need to tailor your content, not just to your audience's interests, but to how they actually like to consume information.
Oh, that's huge. And he uses that example of busy professionals.
Right, like me.
And how a 4,000-word blog post, it's like the last thing they have time for in a day.
Who has time for that? Seriously.
Nobody.
Unless it's about black holes.
Okay, true. Maybe.
Even then, you've got to meet them where they are, right?
Yeah.
So maybe instead of that 4,000-word blog post, it's like a quick video or even just like a 5-bullet-point email.
Right, just something short and to the point. Respect their time.
Exactly. And I feel like that kind of respect, it goes even deeper, Because Robbins is also really big on being honest and authentic, like ditch the clickbait, ditch the gimmicks.
Yes, 100%.
Because when you try to be everything to everyone, you end up connecting with no one.
It's true. And it's so easy to fall into that trap these days, right?
It is.
Especially with social media.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you get caught up in the algorithm.
See someone's likes.
Yeah, and you forget about actually, connecting with people in a real way. You're just chasing clicks at that point.
It's about building that genuine connection, right?
Yes.
Providing real value to the right people.
Right.
It's funny you mentioned that, chasing those algorithms, because Robbins actually brings up AI. Like, he thinks it can be a really powerful tool for connecting with your audience.
It's true, and it's kind of a trip when you think about it, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're talking about using technology to essentially understand and connect with real people better.
Yeah.
It's like he's giving us this sneak peek into, like, the future of communication, you know what I mean?
Totally. Especially these days. It seems like every day there's some new AI tool coming out promising to totally revolutionize how we write and create and connect with each other.
Right. But Robbins reminds us that even the smartest AI out there, it's only as good as the human who's using it.
Right.
And it's that human touch, like that understanding of your audience, is what really makes all the difference.
It's true. And he has this great example about generating images with AI.
Oh, yeah, I love that part.
Instead of just like, prompting the AI with something generic, like a person at a podium, he's like, tailor it to your audience.
Make it specific.
Yeah. Like, if your audience is mostly women, you might say a professional businesswoman at a podium.
Yeah. It's such a small change,
Yeah.
but it makes a huge difference.
It's way more impactful.
Because it's like you're speaking directly to their experience. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's about creating that instant connection where they feel seen.
Totally. And that's something that AI can't do on its own, as smart as it is. You need that human element to really get the nuances of human experience.
For sure. And, it reminds me of what we were talking about earlier. It's not just about the message itself. It's about how you get it across.
Yes, 100%.
It could be a 4,000-word blog post. It could be a single image, but it has to resonate.
It has to hit home.
It does. And Robbins, he ends his article on this really interesting point about how all these principles about understanding your audience,
Yeah.
it goes way beyond just writing or creating content.
It's bigger than that, yeah.
He's saying it's about effective communication, like in all parts of our lives.
Oh, absolutely. Every single one, whether you're at work, at home, with friends, whatever, it all comes down to communication.
So it's not just about like writing a killer presentation or a tweet that goes viral. It's about showing up in our everyday interactions.
It's how we connect with people, how we share our ideas.
Yeah.
And honestly, when you really think about it, isn't that what really matters at the end of the day? Like connecting with each other, building those bridges of understanding.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And on that note, a huge thank you to Curt Robbins for his wisdom, and to you, our incredible listeners, for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.